Today on History You Should Know, before we move on from the Olympic spirit, I have one last story to tell you. This is the story of Jesse Owens, the athlete who defied a dictator. Now that I'm here on YouTube, I would really appreciate it if you can like and subscribe. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video in all its glory! The modern Olympic Games are the world's ultimate sporting event. Mula 1896, dito nagkikita ang iba't ibang bansa para magkaisa sa pamamagitan ng sports. But throughout its history, conflicts between nations and global health crises have resulted in boycotts, exclusions, postponements, and cancellations. Noong 1916, naganap ang unang cancellation ng Olympics dahil sa World War I. At bumalik lang ito noong 1920. However, because of the fallout of the war, Germany was one of the countries excluded from the 1920 and 1924 Games. Germany struggled in the 1920s. Being held responsible for starting World War I, they were forced to pay massive war reparations which bankrupted the country. The once great nation went into a downward spiral. How bad did it get? Noong January 1923, ang presyo ng tinapay ay 250 marks. Pagdating ng November 1923, naging 200,000 million marks na. There were workers who received their salary twice a day because what they made in the morning would be considered worthless by the evening. And then, the Great Depression of 1929 compounded all those problems. By that point, Germany needed a win. Kaya noong 1931, napagdesisyonan ng International Olympic Committee o IOC na ibigay sa Germany ang karangalang maging host ng 1936 Olympics. This gesture would be a great way to repair the world's relationship with Germany. After all, promoting unity, diplomacy, and cooperation among nations is one of the IOC's core missions. And so, the stage was set. The Berlin Olympics would be the perfect display of friendship and peace among nations. And nothing would ruin that at all. Oh crap. In 1933, Adolf Hitler took power in Germany. He rode the fear, panic, and economic turmoil of 1920s Germany to take control along with the Nazi Party. He sold himself as their savior, the solution to all their problems. Problems which he believed were caused by the Jews. Over the following years, the Jews were slowly stripped of their rights, including their right to represent Germany in the coming Olympics. Since Hitler believed in the supreme Aryan race, he saw the upcoming games as a chance to show the world that he was right. In the dictator's mind, athletes with blonde hair and blue eyes were far superior compared to everyone else. The 1936 Olympics was more than an athletic competition. It was also a battleground for political agenda and ideology. So nagkaroon ngayon ng problema ang IOC at ang mga bansang kasali. Would they still push through or join the Olympics that would be held in a fascist state? One of the countries that faced this dilemma was the United States, especially since they didn't only have Jewish athletes, but also African American representatives. But while this uncertainty was taking place, a college student was on his way to make history. A track and field star named Jesse Owens. The youngest of 10 children and a grandson of former slaves, Owens' journey to stardom was nothing short of amazing. At first, his teacher didn't even get his name right. His full name was James Cleveland Owens. When asked what his nickname was, he said JC. The teacher misheard it and called him Jesse, and the name stuck. Hindi siya magaling na estudyante, pero sa PE, he was in a league of his own. As a teenager, he outran all of his classmates in unbelievable fashion, which grabbed the attention of the school's coach. And so, he began formal training and started competing as early as 13 years old. Through high school, he won 75 out of 79 events and was undefeated as a senior. And at that point, Owens was an undeniable track and field star. In May 1935, just over a year before the Berlin Olympics, Jesse Owens truly made his name. The best track and field athletes competed in an event known as the Big Ten Conference. Dashes, hurdles, jumps, you name it, it was there. When Owens arrived, he was suffering from an injured tailbone. As in, hindi man lang siya makayuko para abutin ang tuhod niya. So what did he do? He tied one world record and broke 3 others with an injury in the space of 45 minutes. And here I am taking 3 days to edit content. What he accomplished that day would later be dubbed as the greatest 45 minutes in sport. It seemed like the only feat left for Jesse was to win Olympic gold. The problem was, the Americans still hadn't decided whether or not to send their athletes to Nazi Germany. They feared giving a worldwide platform to the Third Reich's racist, anti-Semitic beliefs would be too dangerous. But then there were those who argued that winning the games with African American athletes would be the perfect counter to Hitler's idea of Aryan supremacy. In addition, a number of outspoken civil rights leaders and some of the athletes themselves also pointed out the hypocrisy of the United States, since the United States were protesting against Nazi racism while embracing segregation in their own country. They had a point. Jesse Owens was the captain of his college team, and yet he couldn't live in the same dorm as his teammates. So, by a slim margin, 400 athletes, including 18 African Americans representing the United States, were sent to the Berlin Olympics. Nazi Germany pulled out all the stops. Ito ang unang televised Olympics in history. Kaya bukod sa pagpapagawa ng engranding stadium, naglinis din ang Germany. The swastikas may have been flying everywhere, but the anti-Jewish signs were temporarily taken down. Suddenly, Berlin looked like a powerful cultural center that was inclusive and welcoming to all. The African American athletes thought so too. They could enter rooms using the front door. They could ride buses that weren't segregated. Pagdating ng opening ceremony, dumating si Hitler nang nakasakay sa kotse to the tune of a Wagner march. There were Nazi salutes all over the stadium, and the athletes who paraded in front of him were expected to give him the Nazi salute, but the Americans did not. The press would later call it a political statement, but the real statement would be made through the games. According to Nazi ideology, those who weren't part of the Aryan race were Untermensch, or subhuman. That description included the African American athletes whose inferior genes would be no match for the supreme Aryan race. In the end, the Germans may have taken home more medals, but the African Americans took home 14 medals for the US. 4 of those gold medals were won by Jesse Owens. Hitler, who congratulated the white blonde winners on the first day, suddenly wasn't around to congratulate any of the winning athletes for the remainder of the games. He allegedly chose not to shake anyone else's hands. Well, whether or not that's true, the most inspiring chapter of this story came in the form of the long jump. After fouling twice in his first 2 attempts, Jesse Owens was about to take his final jump. Pero bago siya tumalon, may lumapit sa kanya para bigyan siya ng advice. It was a tall, blonde athlete named Lutz Long, a German long jumper. After sharing his technique, Owens finally qualified successfully, and the event turned into a one-on-one match between Long and Owens. Jump after jump, the 2 athletes bested each other. But there could only be one winner. That was Jesse Owens. And the first person to congratulate and walk with him around the stadium was none other than Lutz Long himself. The two men developed a friendship over the following years and even considered each other as brothers. Owens's athletic brilliance may have disproved the Nazis' claims of Aryan supremacy, but it's his friendship with Long that proved how prejudice that is learned can also be unlearned, if one is willing. They would continue to write letters to one another until Long was killed in World War II. After the war, Jesse would find Long's son and even became best man at his wedding. And to this day, both families remain in touch with each other. Sadly, after the 1936 Olympics, Jesse Owens returned to the US. Sure, he was an Olympic champion, but first and foremost, he was a black man. He had to use the kitchen entrance to attend his own victory party, and eventually had to take demeaning jobs to make a living, including horse racing. No, I don't mean he rode a horse. He literally raced a horse to see who was faster. And in his mind, he had to do it. Later on, he said, "What was I supposed to do? I had 4 gold medals, but you can't eat 4 gold medals." He had to wait years to leverage his Olympic success when he became one of America's first recognizable product endorsers. He also found success as a powerful speaker, giving interviews and speeches all over the country on a regular basis. Owens died of lung cancer in 1980, but thankfully, his legacy lives on as one of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen, and one whose story continues to inspire hope in the fight against prejudice and discrimination. Hey, you made it all the way to the end of the video. I would really appreciate it if you can like and subscribe down below. If you're listening to this podcast, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star review. Thank you, and I'll catch you on the next one. Follow for more, and boom! Now you know.